Did you know that everything talked about in spirituality, when you need to do anything, has to do with thought forms? Everything. And even when I say everything, I mean also everything else that you do in your life. Why is this important? Well, when we aren't conscious and we don't know about these things, we think we're conscious in the sense that we're actively doing things and stuff like that. But if you don't know that they're thought forms and they come from you, we get to these points where we can say things that are high and low and all these things, and we forget that they're coming from us. And we are neither high nor low. We are just humans. And so it gets to this point where we think, okay, so this being, is it good? Is it bad? It's going to be you. It's not a being. It's going to be you. And if you don't understand your thought forms, you won't be talking to any other energies but thought forms. And that's fine, because that's kind of what happens before you build the bridge. I have lots of things to help you with building the bridge. I do them in sessions. I have workbooks, all kinds of stuff like that. I do go live every once in a while, and if you guys want to talk about those things, I can talk about them. And if people who are a part of my Patreon come on, they might ask about that for their special reading. Because when you're any of the Patreon tier members, you get readings online, on the live. And in those lives, when I talk about these things, every single thing, energy work, all of the stuff, getting to know yourself, all of it, they're all thought forms, whether we want to know it or not. Usually when people have experiences where they see ghost things, they're thought forms. It doesn't mean that those thought forms are not like holding things that are the things that we want to talk about. And so this is why, obviously in life, you can see how this is very important. I'm going to give a few examples of just everyday life. So if you've ever felt like you have so many thoughts in your head, if you are trying to go to sleep and you don't know why you can't go to sleep, and it's not insomnia, it's just something else where you're just like, you normally have never had that issue at all. You just all of a sudden can't sleep. That's one. Another one is not being able to make decisions. Another one is wanting something in life, not necessarily physical items or something like that, but like something you want, like let's say a job, or just like something, you're like anything, right? Or a friendship or a love or whatever. Those are also having to do with thought forms. And now if we get to spiritual things, when I say spiritual, I always mean working with infinity. The other ones are more working with finite, being a human and all that kind of stuff, which is still spiritual, but it goes with a lot of system things and, human society, right? But when it comes to spiritual, it's infinity, and it's about finding your truth and speaking to your energy. So when we get to this, the problems that might occur is thinking that, when you speak to a god, it has to be the certain way. Or if you speak to, if you go to, let's say you have a vision of Atlantis, you think there's only one Atlantis, and all these things where you always think that there's one thing. Those are basically thought forms making you feel like that is all that there is, because you have not built your library, which I've been talking about a lot on the live lately. And there's 3 normal libraries that we have. So we have the one that has to do with the society you grew up in, religions that just things that, you got educated in. Doesn't mean the education's a good education, but you got educated in, right? That's one. The other one is taking those things and anything else you come across that you enjoy or whatever, and seeing what those mean to you. So like, let's say you look at the Bible, for example. What does that mean to you? Each of those stories. How can you connect to those? What questions do you have? How do you want to go deeper? And then you have your own library, right? You build that. Also, let's say you get really into nature and you start exploring, connecting with nature, touching trees and things like that. That's going to be a part of that library as well. The soul one, you have a soul library, are unconscious things that you just know. And you're like, I don't know how I know this, but I know this. And so that helps you. That's a type of library. By the way, these 3 are basic libraries. There's going to be way more that you get the more you grow all of them. So this is basically what happens, and people usually stay with those ones that they know. So when something that they come across something, they're going to use like for example, the best example is angels. When someone comes across things and they grew up in Christianity and their library is all about Christianity, they're going to think those beings that are being nice, they're like, those are angels. They're going to draw them as angels, and how they depicted in the religion, what angels are, that kind of thing. And the other thing is that sometimes people go deep into reading it, so they would know that even the angels that people even talk about, they look different. And then the people who are like only listening to preachers, or just what a modern little Bible for a kid has or something like that, they would be like, okay, they always just have these wings because I saw them in art, and I also saw them they talk about it in the religion. So then they would always subscribe it to that. So there is like this thing that people do. I'm going to talk about someone. I asked them on the live if I could share their story, where they were growing up Christian and they were giving themselves to Jesus. And all they did was just give themselves to Jesus, give themselves to Jesus. And then their life changed in many ways. And they realized, because they started to be able to speak to Yeshua. And they were like, okay, well, that's weird. And basically, intuitively, she said she wanted everything back from Jesus. Yeshua guided her to do this. And so she was feeling unempowered from that because she was giving everything to Jesus instead of working with Jesus or learning from Jesus. And so she felt that it was like kind of, and she was right, something that was taking from her. And the reason why it feels like that is thought forms can do this when you're focused on those type of libraries. So if you're in this, you have like the 3 minimum libraries, and you're focusing on this one library, tiny little information, and you end up giving yourself to it because there's no space. You're giving yourself to a group over and over and over again. Has nothing to do with your life. It's just, you're not even like going, okay, Jesus said this, so I'm going to do this. You're just like, here, Jesus, I give it to you, right? That's what she was doing. And so when you take it back like that, you're basically saying, okay, I'm not concentrating that much on this thought form. Now, I gave a bunch of examples like this. I'm going to go into them all deeper. If you guys have questions on here, I will answer you, but they will be on Patreon. So I'm going to go deep on Patreon, but I will answer quickly some of the questions on the live and here. The other thing I wanted to mention about thought forms is in those examples that I gave, that thought form has the library. So it's her thought has the library in that, right? Like it has that, only the library she knows inside it. So it's like everyone has their own Jesus thought form. And when they change it, then they add more things to that thought form. And some thought forms have not, you can think of them like little vehicles. Some of them we don't even know we're making, and those are the shadows, usually. Not always, but a lot of the time they're shadows. And they're the things that we don't want. And those get really big, and that's when we start to feel very heavy. Like we have a huge backpack on top of, like, that we're carrying with us, and we're like, oh, this feels so heavy. That's because your thought forms are like, you just keep feeding this, you have the same thing that already started, and you keep feeding that same thing to that same thought form. They're not always thought forms though, shadows. So yes, the shadows, thought forms are normally that we ignore and they're heavy and things like that. They're normally like that, but they can be something else as well. They can be something where an energy came to go speak to you that wasn't a thought form and integrate into you. It's another version of you to integrate so that your human can learn more things, blah, blah, blah. It happens all the time, whether we want it or not. And instead because it's felt and was similar to something that was like a trauma, we basically make it into a shadow, and so that it's kind of trapped almost. And so those are the gold mines. They are a lot of the time when we feel stuck, it's because we wanted something, we were heard, that energy came, that version of us, so that we can do that thing we want to do. And then when we uncover that, we not only help ourselves from where it first started, but it gets unlocked, a door gets unlocked, and you automatically can get the thing that you were like wondering why you couldn't have it. So I just added a little bit there. That's not a thought form, but it's good to know because thought forms are going to be a bit different. They're more you, right? Okay. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. but I will be starting that on Patreon soon. And it will be tier 2.